Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Carter Mitchell was holding a cup of coffee, but he barely noticed when the liquid spilled slightly. His eyes were fixed on some random spot on the wall while his mind kept spinning in circles, trying to figure out exactly when everything had gone wrong. For years, he had devoted his life to the advertising agency where he worked. He arrived before everyone else and left after everyone had gone. He was the guy who solved problems no one else wanted to face. He closed million-dollar accounts, saved last-minute campaigns, and kept the team together when chaos knocked on the door. He was respected. Valued. Or at least, that's what he thought. That morning, Carter was called into an unexpected meeting. It was too quiet. When he entered the room, Ryan, his boss, wouldn't look him in the eye. The speech was short, almost automatic. "We're going through a restructuring, we'll have to let some people go." That was it. No thanks. No chance to defend himself. Carter stood there for a few seconds, waiting for someone to say it was a joke. But it wasn't. He was escorted to the reception area like a stranger. His badge was taken away. And suddenly, he was just another number outside the system. His head throbbed as he made his way back home. It still didn't make sense. Why him? Why so coldly? And worst of all, why did Ryan seem relieved to fire him? The feeling was that something was off, but at that moment, all Carter could do was take a deep breath and keep his composure. When he got home, he tried to hide it. He said he had a headache, went straight upstairs to the bedroom. He needed time. He had to organize his thoughts. In the days that followed, Carter dove into resumes, old contacts, job websites. Every time he clicked send, it was like pressing a button that only returned silence. But what bothered him the most wasn't the professional failure. It was the feeling that while he was sinking, Lindsay, his wife, seemed more distant, as if she wasn't experiencing the same collapse. She avoided long conversations, answered with monosyllables, and spent hours on her phone, always with the screen turned down. Then something started to bother him for real. Lindsay began leaving every Friday night. She claimed it was meetings with work friends, but Carter had never met any of them. And there was something about how she dressed, makeup she hadn't used in years, new perfumes, different clothes. She always left excited and came back late, sometimes with a smell on her that didn't belong in their routine. Carter tried not to jump to conclusions, but the doubt started to grow like a crack spreading through concrete. It was then, while walking by the living room with a glass in hand, that he saw Lindsay sitting on the couch typing something on her phone. She smiled to herself, one of those light, involuntary smiles. A smile he hadn't seen in months. And that detail hit him harder than anything else. Because he knew. He'd seen that look before. Only now, it wasn't for him anymore. At that moment, standing in the middle of the hallway with a glass of water in his hand and a tight throat, Carter realized, either he acted, or he'd be crushed by a truth he didn't fully know yet. And even without proof, even without certainty, he decided to act. Because when everything you've built starts falling apart around you, you only have two choices, accept it or react. And Carter, for the first time, was about to discover what he was really capable of. Carter started observing everyday life with new eyes. Everything that once seemed irrelevant, schedules, gestures, tones of voice, was now analyzed with surgical precision. He understood planning, management, and execution. He'd always been detail-oriented. He'd handled big campaigns, complex problems, and tight deadlines. But now, he would apply all his experience to solve the biggest challenge of his life, finding out what Lindsay was hiding. He started simple. He noted the times she left the house and the exact minutes she returned. Gradually, he noticed a pattern. Fridays were always the same, she got ready carefully, wore the same sweet perfume, and her smile before leaving seemed rehearsed. She came back hours later, agitated, with a distant look and vague answers. Sometimes she said she was with Amanda. Other times, with Natalie. But Carter knew neither of these people existed, at least not in the social circle he'd known for almost 8 years. Then he decided to get more technical. He bought a small monitoring kit online, something discreet, nothing over the top. He knew if he went too far, he might lose his only chance to get the truth. In the kit, there were 3 essential devices: a GPS tracker, a microphone, and a mini camera. The next night, while Lindsay was taking a shower, Carter installed everything. Each piece was placed with precision. The tracker was attached inside the car frame, practically impossible to notice. The microphone was hidden under the dashboard, among the wires, and the camera was positioned near the passenger seat. That night, he barely slept. He was anxious. For the first time, he felt he would have answers, good or bad, but answers. When Friday came, he stayed silent. He watched her put on makeup more carefully, use a red lipstick she hadn't worn in months, and fix her hair with a slight excitement. She wore a black dress, the same one she used to wear for special events. Before leaving, she casually said, "I'm going out with the girls, I'll be back later." Carter just nodded and waited for the door to close. He grabbed his phone and opened the GPS app. A small blue dot showed the exact location of Lindsay's car. He watched in real time as she crossed the city, but the final destination wasn't a fancy restaurant or a known bar. It was a remote parking lot near a green area where few cars stopped at night. Carter put on his headphones and activated the remote microphone. For a few minutes, the sound was just the engine turning off, the creak of a bag being opened, a few taps on the phone. Then a new door opened, and the camera clearly showed a man getting into the car, sitting next to her, kissing her hand. Carter froze. He recognized that face. It was Ryan Whitmore. The same man who fired him coldly and without reason. The same man who claimed to be his friend during office meetings. The boss who used to ask him for personal advice. And now, there he was, smiling at Lindsay with the intimacy of someone who'd already lived through this encounter many times. "You're late," she said, adjusting her hair. "The traffic was terrible," he replied, trying to play it light. But what Carter heard next shattered what little confidence he had left. "He doesn't suspect a thing," Lindsay said. "He's so lost over this whole firing thing that he hasn't noticed I'm already checking out." Ryan laughed. "We wait a little longer, and he'll accept whatever comes his way. Without a job, without options, he'll sign anything." And she added, "I just want the right moment to ask for the divorce, then we split everything and that's it. Half of what he has is mine anyway." Lindsay leaned back in the car seat, her fingers slowly sliding over Ryan's thigh, who looked out the window as if trying to see a future that didn't exist yet. The silence between them spoke volumes, but she wanted to hear it out loud, as if she had no more patience for delayed promises. Turning her face toward him, her eyes half closed, she asked bluntly, "And your part? Are you doing it?" Ryan hesitated for a few seconds before answering. He sighed as if he knew what was coming required care. "My side is more complicated," he said with a tone that mixed justification and apology. "The company I work for belongs to her. The house too. The cars, everything is in Charlotte's name. Even the money that goes into the account comes from her stocks. Her father never trusted me, which is why he made sure to keep everything under control. If I make any wrong move, I'll end up with nothing." Lindsay immediately frowned. This wasn't new. They'd talked about it before. But hearing it again that he depended on his wife irritated her. Ryan noticed and tried to soften it. "I just need time. I'm trying to do everything discreetly. If I rush it, I'll lose everything. I need to secure at least half. Only after that can I file for divorce and stay with you properly." She bit her lip, unsatisfied. She wasn't there to be anyone's plan B. "You always say that. That you'll fix it, that you'll leave, that we'll be together. And I keep lying here on this seat, listening to you promise what you never deliver." Her voice came out low but firm, and Ryan had no immediate response. The weight of the truth was there. He depended on a woman who never saw him as an equal. And as much as he pretended to be in control, he was a prisoner of a world he didn't build alone. Carter listened intently from the other side of the recording. Every word was like another piece in the puzzle that was now starting to reveal a much bigger picture than he imagined. It wasn't just him who was the target of this manipulation. Charlotte was also part of the game. And Ryan, behind his confident facade, was just a man cornered between ambition and cowardice. Carter removed the headphones. His rapid heartbeat pulsed in his temples. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a meticulously planned move. The man who fired him without reason was the same one occupying his place beside the woman who swore to love him. And together, they were planning to take what little he had left, dignity, stability, and part of what he had built with hard work. But what they forgot, or underestimated, was that Carter Mitchell was a strategist. And for him, the game was just beginning. Lindsay arrived home late that night, her steps light and controlled as if she had rehearsed every movement. She left her shoes at the entrance, adjusted her hair in the hallway mirror, and forced a smile before entering the living room. Carter was on the couch, the TV on and his gaze lost, pretending to be distracted. She approached, gave him a quick kiss on the forehead, a gesture that once carried affection but now sounded almost mechanical, and muttered something about being exhausted. She hurried upstairs, saying she needed a shower. Carter remained still, listening to the sounds of her steps, the shower turning on, and the routine continuing as if nothing was happening, while inside him, everything had changed. Carter spent the night awake, staring at the ceiling while the weight of what he'd heard settled slowly into his consciousness. The pain of betrayal was violent, but what consumed him most was the contempt. Lindsay wasn't just in another relationship, she was planning to dismantle everything he had built, as if his life was just a disposable piece on a board of interests. And Ryan, the man who pretended respect professionally for years, was just an opportunist hiding behind the fortune of his own wife. While reviewing the recordings and organizing the files, Carter realized there was a common thread in all of it: ambition disguised as affection. Lindsay wanted stability without effort. Ryan desired power without having built anything on his own. Neither of them sought love, they were both chasing emotional, financial, and social profit. It was a cold kind of selfishness where the other only mattered until they stopped being useful. Carter, until then, had been useful. Now, he was an obstacle in their path. From this point, Carter understood that simply reacting wouldn't be enough. He needed to act intelligently, using what he had learned over years dealing with negotiations, contracts, and human behavior. Every relationship, whether commercial or personal, is built on interests. Some last because the interests remain aligned. Others fall apart when desires drift too far apart. In the case of Lindsay and Ryan, their alliance was based on one goal: bringing him down and dividing the remains. But Carter wouldn't settle for scraps. He wanted to turn the game, and for that, he needed a key player. It was in this reasoning that Charlotte Whitmore emerged as the name that made the most sense. She was more than the betrayed wife, she was the guardian of everything Ryan pretended to own. The daughter of a conservative and rigid magnate, Charlotte grew up surrounded by advice, warnings, and contracts. Her marriage to Ryan came with clauses protecting every penny of her fortune. And this detail, which in the past might have seemed excessive caution, was now the only real vulnerability in Ryan's plan. If Charlotte found out about the betrayal, she could undo everything. But there was a problem: Carter barely knew Charlotte. They had met only a few times, always at corporate events, exchanging polite and formal words. She was discreet, focused, and maintained a graceful distance from everyone. Still, Carter knew the kind of pain he was facing was the only one capable of breaking through her shield. He spent the following day preparing the material carefully. He selected the most relevant clips from the recordings. He chose the clearest angles from the images. He wrote a brief message, objective and to the point: "We need to talk. It's serious. About Ryan. And about your security." It took hours for the reply to come. Just 3 words, but enough to change everything: where and when. The meeting was set for the following afternoon at a discreet cafe in town. Carter arrived early, hands sweating, heart racing. When Charlotte appeared, wearing a light coat and sunglasses, her posture was that of someone there out of obligation, but her eyes revealed something deeper: restlessness, perhaps suspicion. She sat silently. "Go ahead," she said firmly. Carter slid his phone across the table, opened the video, and pressed play. She watched from start to finish. First with a neutral look, then squinting her eyes, and finally with her jaw clenched. She saw the moment Ryan gets into the car. The touch of hands. The laughter. The cold words. And especially, the part where he admits that everything he owns belongs to her, and that his strategy was to secure half before filing for divorce. Charlotte didn't say anything for a few minutes. She just breathed deeply and rested her elbows on the table. "My father always said Ryan was nothing more than a cheap actor," she commented calmly, as if she'd heard this speech before. "But I wanted to believe he was more than that. I insisted on protecting everything because I never trusted him completely. And now, you show me that the doubt has become a certainty." Carter nodded with understanding. "I lost everything," he said. "Job, stability, respect. But what they don't know is that I still have something they'll never reach: conviction." Charlotte looked at him for a few seconds, as if evaluating an unlikely ally. Then she crossed her arms on the table and said directly, "This recording is enough to free me from him completely. He'll leave with nothing. But that's just the beginning." And at that moment, in that firm and almost icy tone, Carter knew he had awakened more than an ally. He had touched the wounded pride of a woman who never accepted being made a fool, and who now had all the tools to fight back. The counterattack had found its general. The atmosphere in Carter's house seemed the same, but everything there had already changed. He spent the following days in silence, acting with precision. He prepared documents, saved files, reviewed each recording carefully. Charlotte, meanwhile, hired trusted lawyers and discreetly moved the pieces that would define Ryan's fate. The coordination between her and Carter intensified. What started as an exchange of information became a partnership. She knew exactly where to strike to cause damage without drawing attention. She knew every detail of the assets, every clause in the prenuptial agreement. And most importantly, she had enough evidence to bring down the man who slept under her roof. Ryan continued acting as if he were about to achieve everything he wanted. He met Lindsay frequently, made plans with her as if the world conspired in his favor. Carter, aware of everything, limited himself to observing. Every forced smile from Lindsay, every poorly formed excuse was another piece added to the puzzle he would deliver at the right moment. Until then, he hadn't reacted directly, and that was part of the strategy. They needed to keep believing he was lost, that the firing had destabilized him, that he would accept the divorce without a fight. When Charlotte finalized the paperwork, she called Carter with a short but heavy phrase: "From now on, Ryan doesn't even step into the garage." She managed, with legal backing, to block access, freeze benefits, and notify her husband that the marriage would end due to proven infidelity. The impact was immediate. Ryan received the call from the lawyer over the weekend, while he was at a hotel with Lindsay. The news hit him hard. He tried to hide it from her, but the trembling hand holding the phone betrayed his panic. Lindsay noticed the desperation. She asked what happened, but Ryan struggled to answer. When he finally admitted that Charlotte had discovered everything and removed him from the company, Lindsay paled. The fantasy they had built together was now unraveling. The security she projected onto Ryan disappeared in seconds. And before she could react, her phone rang too. It was an unknown number. On the other end, a serious voice informed her that she needed to report to the police station to provide clarifications. Carter's name was mentioned. And when the officer said it was regarding false accusations and procedural fraud, her legs buckled. Caught off guard, the two left the hotel without saying a word. What was a secret romance was now becoming a public scandal. Ryan tried to call his personal lawyer, but the lawyer was clear: he no longer provided services to him. "My connection was with the company, not with you." The rejection hit Ryan like a sentence. From outside the police station, Carter watched from afar. His face remained calm, but inside, the feeling was different. It wasn't pure revenge, but restored justice. None of it was driven by hatred, but by a firm decision not to be discarded by those who saw him as a stepping stone. The trial proceeded with force. The evidence was undeniable. Charlotte's lawyers moved the action with surgical precision, demanding reparations for moral damages, breach of contract, and harm to the corporate image. It was more than a legal action, it was a calculated response to every false step Ryan and Lindsay had made. They tried to defend themselves, tried to justify, but everything they said only dug them deeper. The audio recordings, the videos, the dates, the values, the dialogues, everything pointed to the same goal: destroy Carter and profit from it. But instead of coming out on top, they were exposed in court as accomplices in a shameful scheme. Charlotte was present at every hearing, with a firm posture and impeccable speeches. Ryan, who once paraded confidence, now entered with his head down, defeated. Lindsay, on the other hand, remained silent, avoiding the press, avoiding any direct gaze. She knew her reputation was ruined. Worse, she knew she had bet high on a game she didn't understand, alongside a man who couldn't even hold his own position. The relationship between them began to crumble with the first subpoenas. Arguments, mutual accusations, broken promises became routine. What once seemed like unity became a burden. Months passed. The trial was ongoing, but the forecast was clear: if they lost, they would be condemned to $1 million debt they'd carry for the rest of their lives. Ryan lost all prestige. The company removed him from the board of directors, his closest friends disappeared, and his contacts vanished. Lindsay, unemployed and with a destroyed reputation, returned to living off favors, trying to maintain appearances on social media that no longer convinced anyone. Her pride turned into silence, and the certainty of regaining her freedom became daily frustration. She distanced herself from Ryan, saying she needed time. The truth was, there was nothing left between them but failure. It was on an ordinary morning, while scrolling through social media feeds with tired eyes, that Lindsay saw the picture. It was a simple photo, but with devastating impact. Carter and Charlotte together, smiling, holding hands, with a discreet caption: "She said yes." The announcement of their engagement spread quickly. Digital magazines commented on the union between the strategist who became a symbol of resilience and the billionaire heiress of one of the largest business groups in the country. Lindsay stared at the screen as if the air had been ripped from her chest. Carter, the man she underestimated, was about to marry a powerful, admired woman who owned an empire. And she, who once believed she controlled the board, was now just a spectator, trapped in the mistake she had built herself. As Carter moved forward, Lindsay discovered that the worst kind of punishment wasn't imprisonment or an unpayable debt, it was seeing someone you despised become exactly what you would never achieve. And at that moment, she realized that life has a cruel way of returning every choice. Some people fall because they are victims. Others fall because they think they're in control. But those who fall due to arrogance are remembered not for the pain they caused, but for the greatness of those who overcame them. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.